How's it going, guys? Thanks so much for clicking on this video. This is a CDL Talent Roundtable discussion where all of us as talent got together, put our heads together, and basically talked on each and every single CDL roster heading into MW2. We chat on what was their journey last season, what they've currently constructed, and the way that this roster could look or this team could look moving into the MW2 year. So major thank you to all the talent for joining in on this, for having these conversations, as well as to Bryce, who actually orchestrated all of this stuff to come together. Now the full-on VODs will have a full part 1 and a full part 2. Those links rather will be in the description of this video that you can feel free to check out to watch it more in long form. If you want to check out certain teams, certain snippets, I will have that here located on the channel. If you haven't seen your favorite teams upload yet, I promise it's coming. We talked about all 12 of them. So make sure to let us know, whether through different content pieces, if you want to tweet, comment, like, subscribe, any way that you guys can show us some support to let us know that you guys like content like this. We would love to hear it. We'd love to hear your guys' feedback, output on ways that we could even make it better. So without further ado, I'll leave you to it. Enjoy the video, and I'll see you back here on the channel really soon.
So we're going to move on to our next team. I believe we can talk about LAG, the Los Angeles Guerrillas, who always going to disappoint me, but not changing their logo to an actual gorilla, because that would be brilliant. They've never done it, and they will do it at some point. But this team, where to begin? They were my dark horse throughout the year until they won a championship, and then they stopped being my dark horse because they fell to bits. I thought this team, by the way, had incredible potential. They started off, they were okay towards the bottom, and they were slowly getting better. It was like they were getting incrementally better event to event. Then they won the championship, gunless set out, Spark came in, MVP, then they fell off a cliff, and then they started playing hot potato with their players, never really regained it. Outside of that major win, they never really did anything.
That's it though, isn't it? Isn't that the most Vanguardium Leviosa thing that ever happened when it comes down to that LAG win chance? Sorry.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, to me, this is just the team with the most to prove, right? Arcides is on the best team for the past 3 years. He gets dropped, so now everybody's going to be looking at him of like, were you actually that good to be deserving on the team, or like, were you getting carried the entire time? Obviously, in my opinion, he's clearly that good. I think even the player poll came out, and for this game, like, I think he got ranked at like 9th for the player base like rankings, but still, narratively, people are going to be ready to dump all over him. Same thing with Spart. Everybody just calling him a one trick with the Volk. Same thing with Hook. People are going to be calling him wash and be like, hey, we know you're world champion like 3 years ago, but since then, like, what have you really done? Obviously, winning a tournament in the mix, but like, people are just going to be jumping all over him. And even for Neptune, a lot to prove. And I mean, he had all the turmoil at the start of the year on the New York Subliners roster. And all of that just like, I don't know, weirdness and strangeness that team put out. But I think what Neptune was saying, like in the middle of last year, of just like, I'm going to get back on the grind. I'm putting my head down and working my way through challengers to, I think, a decent amount of success. Now he's back on a starting team, but still has that to prove. So I think like all 4 players, like this is the team with, I don't know, all of the chips on all of the shoulders type deal. And I think it is going to be, you know, like outside of Optic, maybe almost, or maybe FaZe, maybe outside of like 2 or 3 teams, this will be one of the teams with the most pressure on the team, on every single player. And I think that is you know, the pressure either makes diamonds or will absolutely break this team, and the roster changes are going to get kicked in the mix. But yeah, same thing with almost every other team. Haven't seen them play. Kind of think it'll be like a middle of the pack situation where like if they play well, end up in the top 4 conversation. If they start getting smoked, end up in the bottom 4. But you know, who the hell knows? Yeah,
when it comes into pressure, we all realize why the pressure exists, right? Obviously, because it's Arcides coming over to this team. He's looking to have a, you know, it's this idea of the fact that Atlanta FaZe are the team that they are. He's the odd man out, and now he's basically competing against his old team in terms of that. At the same time, there's also a huge amount of pressure on the other 3 players that by almost everybody in the community expected, okay, Arcides going to LAG? Who else are they going to add? Right? Are they going to add Attach? Is Cammy coming to this team? Like, who knows? Maybe some major marquee free agent is joining alongside Arcides. Nobody else? Like, that's it? Like, it's just Arcides with these other 3 players. Like, we almost doubted the fact that LAG was done with roster mania before they should have been. And so I think that we're all a little surprised the fact that they decided to keep the 3 that they have. I will say that I didn't get a chance to watch Warpath, which is their documentary series. They just released episode 1 yesterday. I have been a really big fan of the moves that LAG have been making, not behind the scenes, but like in the dark a little bit, like in terms of like additions that they've made, coaching staff wise. MARKYB and Mayhem, they end up joining over here with like Ricky and whatnot. It feels like there's a really good vibe going in that direction. I also really like the things that I'm hearing out of the LAG camp, because I think that this team not only is, I think this LAG roster knows who they are. And that I think is the most important element. They recognize the fact of who they are, the expectations that they have for themselves, the pressure that does exist. And what I kept hearing in that documentary throughout it was, we're putting in the work, we're grinding, and that is the way that we're going to see success. We're going to see success through grinding and playing as early as we can. And I feel like from the documentary that I watched, from honestly, like they were playing Cold War as soon as the roster was announced. Like those guys were streaming, they were playing in wagers, etc. I feel like the Guerrillas, while they may not be the, darlings of the league or even a team that we're like, oh, look out for the Guerrillas, I do think that they are doing all the right things necessary to get this team to the highest level that they can be at. I think we could all, debate or figure out where that level could be, but I do like the things that I'm hearing about LAG from the management side of things. I keep saying this, and I'll end it with this. I feel like by the end of the season, if this is the same LAG roster or if there are additions made to it, I feel like the Guerrillas are on the right path. That's the way I will label it.
Okay, I like that. I think for this current team in the Guerrillas, it's kind of a bit of pressure. You remember, they got a new coach. Arcee's coming over. We spoke about Arcee's before, about, he's coming into this roster now where he's been used to playing with, let's face it, some of the greatest players that are playing at the moment, right? It's going to be a bit of a change for him. He's going to go from basically being the favorites in every single game and most of the times walking away with those games to, this is maybe a little bit of an uphill battle for some of these players. I think Spart's going to have a very good year. I am looking forward to seeing how Neptune adapts to this team, because obviously there was a lot of talk around Neptune when he's New York kind of thing, and then I saw him go into challenges and be great again. Is it going to work for him on this team? And I think Huke is another big question mark, because people are, I want to say, fed up of not knowing what Huke they're going to get. I think that's probably the best way to put it. Like, they don't know if he's going to be magic or tragic. Like, it is difficult to decipher what you are looking at when Huke comes onto the stage, because he could be a game changer, or he could just be another cog in a machine that kind of sputters and dies by the side of the road. And I think it's proving time for Huke in this roster. It's proving time for Arcees. Spart wants to get back to MVP, and Neptune obviously wants to put all that noise and drama behind him as well. It's another one of these teams that feels like the weight of the world is on their shoulders coming into it. And then they've got a head coach coming across from Ultra, a team that basically was all vibes, like got on really, really well, had a very, very good time. Teamwork and comms were a different level. It is a big blender, and I just need to know whether that smoothie is going to taste good or taste bitter halfway in.
And I think, to touch on Lando's point of that, we were expecting maybe a little bit more after the Arcees signing. I think the MARKYB one's a big one. I really do. Nothing to do with him being a dear friend of mine, maybe partially. But at the same time,
birthday,
I think
by the way, isn't it?
It is his birthday. Happy birthday, Mark. I've known him longer than I've known you, which is the craziest thing. I think him coming in there is a massive, massive pickup for them. I want to say, you talk about the culture, you talk about the everything around Toronto Ultra. He was part of that, kind of in that mold in a certain sense of like, all the lads from the UK, yada yada yada. I think it's there's pressure on him as well, because I think he is sort of revered as a very, very good coach. He knows what he's talking about. Not many people have a bad word to say about MARKYB as a coach. He's going to be coming in there with some high expectations on him, but I think it is a really good pickup for them as well. So yeah, I'm interested to see how they do. Speaking of the one or two actually just even a few maps that we've seen from them in terms of scrims, they look pretty decent. In fairness, I want to say they look all right. So yeah, I'm very intrigued by this roster. I couldn't tell you where I put them, to be honest. I think it's very, very difficult. Obviously, it's difficult anyway, because we haven't seen any of these teams play on a competitive setting. But at the same time, I think this is one of the ones that's a little bit more harder to place.
All right, Chance, I'm going to throw to you first. Final thoughts on the LAG team?
Maybe final thoughts would just be like, it doesn't look like a roster to me that is going to be able to produce consistent success in terms of like there's maybe one or two teams that I think could actually stay top 4 all year. Like even the world champs from last year had plenty of turmoil through the middle of the year, through the start. So I think this is a team that just needs to stay on top of the mental game, stay like the same thing with like the Neptune line of like stay on the grind and like keep your head in it, because it's not going to be an easy year.
Okay, not an easy year. All right.